Now, Pete Rose had what they call a gambling addiction. Yeah, that's really what held him back over the years. This so-called gambling addiction. Or I don't want to say so-called, but this gambling addiction. Now, what makes me uncomfortable? What makes me uncomfortable about how Pete Rose has been treated because of gambling. Here's what makes me uncomfortable about it. Right now, the sports industry embraces gambling. Sports betting. They embrace it. They promote it. They talk about it all the time. But this baseball legend, Pete Rose, is an example of not only the perils of gambling, but also why the sports leagues that embrace this online betting industry are hypocrites. They're hypocrites. The way they treated Pete Rose. The words that are affixed to the baseball legend Pete Rose, who died earlier this week at the age of 83, is not the hit king for his baseball record, 4,256 base hits, or his nickname, Charlie Hustle, not as the 17-time All-Star, not as the player who made the All-Star team at 5 different positions. Oh, Pete Rose was the man. Not as the iconic 70s Cincinnati team known as the Big Red Machine. Not as the legend going airborne, head first belly flop slides. He's not even being remembered for the horrible parts of his life, the accusation for statutory rape, which he denied. He did settle out of court. Also, his years of hard living and just the ugly side of things. He was a sports star in the 1970s who could, I don't know, indulge on every temptation. Now, Pete Rose's addiction was gambling. Gambling. That's what his addiction was. Betting on baseball is what got him in trouble. Now, he was the Reds manager betting on baseball, and the late commissioner was determined to drive gambling from the sport. And what they chose to do was ban Pete Rose from sports, from baseball, for life. Yep. Now, coming to baseball after a stint as the youngest president in the history of Yale, the late commissioner saw his job as warding off those who would vandalize baseball. Right? They wanted baseball to have this place in American fabric. It doesn't even hold this place anymore. But back in the day, baseball was up here, where football is now. And so in 1989, the late commissioner passed away. 1989. He died of a heart attack at the age of 51. Friends said that the stress of banning Pete Rose played a role in his early death. And so his friend, Faye Vincent, succeeded him. And he saw sustaining Pete Rose's lifetime banishment as a duty to the late commissioner's legacy. I don't agree with that. A lot of folks don't agree with that. Now, Pete Rose never helped his cause by issuing denials for decades that he bet on baseball. So what you have is an old way of doing things, an old school way. And it's not that I'm looking at it with new eyes, because I felt this way as a kid at the time. I mean, you can give him a fine, ban him for 10 years, ban him for 5 years, but banning him for life? Are you kidding me? I don't know. But what Pete Rose did admit to was 30 years later, to finally get in the Hall of Fame, his last effort to fulfill his dream, taking place in Cooperstown, that failed. It didn't happen for him. And the lifetime ban would remain. So nowadays, 2024, we've come to understand that Pete Rose's desire to bet on anything and everything, including baseball, we've come to accept that this was an addiction. Now, his unsavory other allegations in his personal life aside, he was a gambling addict. And what he really needed was for baseball, Major League Baseball, to direct him to treatment and eventually offer him an open and transparent path back into the game that he loved. Instead, the league chose to let him be a living warning to other players. And I just think that they did him wrong. When you look at where things are now with regards to gambling, betting on games, and how the great Pete Rose was treated. Now, Pete Rose was a man, just like anybody else. He was a human, right? So he definitely had flaws. But I think that Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame, Baseball Hall of Fame. And I definitely am anxious to hear folks' opinions. Let me know your thoughts. Of course, should Pete Rose, a.k.a. Charlie Hustle, the late great baseball player and manager, should he be in the Hall of Fame? He played in the MLB from 1963 to 1986. Most prominently was a member of the Cincinnati Reds, known as the Big Red Machine. I remember seeing him in WWE, WWF. He was the man. He was the man. But Pete Rose, late great Pete Rose, dying from heart disease, according to the coroner. So that I'll definitely want to hear folks' thoughts on the late great Pete Rose. Make sure that you are subscribed, of course, on youtube.com/djdiamondk. And anywhere you get your podcast, just stream us, of course, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc., etc.